What if I told you that there's exactly one thing standing between you and the wealth you've always dreamed of, and it's not what you think it is? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most people refuse to face. It's not the economy keeping you broke. It's not your boss, your background, or your lack of connections. It's not even your education level or the country you were born in. The real enemy is far more subtle, more internal, and infinitely more dangerous, because you can't fight an enemy you don't even know exists. Has this ever happened to you? You work harder than everyone around you. You consume every piece of financial advice you can find. You visualize your goals religiously, yet somehow you remain stuck in the same financial patterns, watching others seemingly effortlessly attract the abundance that continues to elude you. You might even find yourself wondering if there's something fundamentally wrong with you, if wealth is simply not meant for people like you. What you're about to discover might surprise you, but Napoleon Hill, the legendary author who studied the minds of the most successful people in history, identified this single barrier that separates those who achieve extraordinary wealth from those who struggle their entire lives. And here's what's truly remarkable. Once you identify this invisible force, once you bring it into the light and confront it directly, everything changes. Your relationship with money transforms. Opportunities begin appearing where you once saw only obstacles, and the universe itself seems to reorganize in your favor. The truth is, what the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. This isn't just motivational rhetoric. It's a fundamental law of success that has been proven time and again by those who've built empires from nothing. But here's where most people get it wrong. If you're not currently experiencing the level of wealth you desire, it's not because you're not working hard enough or because you don't know the right strategies. The problem runs much deeper than that. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you've been told about creating wealth. You see, every person who has ever achieved extraordinary financial success has had to overcome this one specific internal barrier. They've had to identify it, confront it, and ultimately transform it into their greatest source of power. Think about it for a moment. You've probably consumed countless hours of financial education, attended seminars, read books, watched videos, maybe even hired coaches or mentors. Yet despite all this external input, something internal continues to sabotage your progress. It's as if there's an invisible force field around wealth that you can see but cannot penetrate. This force field isn't created by external circumstances. It's not maintained by the government, the economy, or even your current financial situation. It's something far more personal, something that lives within the deepest recesses of your mind, operating silently in the background, influencing every financial decision you make, every opportunity you either seize or let slip away. The most successful people in the world understand that the battle for wealth isn't fought in the marketplace, in boardrooms, or even in the external world of strategies and tactics. The real battle, the one that determines everything, happens in a place most people never think to look, a place where your deepest beliefs about money, success, and your own worthiness quietly shape your reality in ways you've never imagined. What you're about to learn will forever change how you approach wealth creation, but more importantly, it will reveal why every method you've tried before has fallen short of your expectations, and what you must do differently to finally break through to the abundance that's been waiting for you all along. That invisible force field I mentioned, the one that's been quietly sabotaging your financial progress for years, has a name. It's called doubt. Not the obvious kind of doubt that you're consciously aware of, but the insidious, whisper-quiet doubt that operates behind the scenes of your mind, constantly questioning whether you truly deserve abundance, whether Financial freedom is actually possible for someone like you, whether this time will be any different from all the other times you've tried and fallen short. Here's what most people don't realize. Doubt isn't just a feeling or a thought pattern. It's an active force that literally extinguishes your creative power before it even has a chance to manifest. Think about it this way. When you plant a seed in soil that's been poisoned, no amount of water, sunlight, or fertilizer will make that seed grow. Doubt is the poison in the soil of your mind, and every financial goal you set, every wealth-building strategy you attempt, is like trying to grow abundance in contaminated ground. The universe operates on a very specific frequency, and that frequency isn't hope, wishful thinking, or positive intentions. The universe responds to certainty. It responds to the unwavering conviction that what you desire is not just possible, but inevitable. When your energy carries even the slightest vibration of doubt, you're essentially sending mixed signals, like trying to tune into a radio station while someone else keeps changing the frequency. The message becomes garbled, unclear, and ultimately ineffective. If you're serious about transforming your relationship with money, about mastering the principles that actually create lasting wealth, then subscribing to this channel is your next natural step. This isn't just entertainment, it's a complete education in wealth consciousness that unfolds with each video. But here's where the real transformation begins, and this is the hidden truth that separates those who achieve extraordinary wealth from those who remain perpetually stuck in cycles of financial struggle. The solution isn't found in learning more strategies, reading more books, or finding the perfect mentor. The solution lies in a fundamental shift from doubt to decision. Not motivation, which fades when the initial excitement wears off. Not inspiration, which comes and goes like waves, but decision, the kind of rock-solid, irreversible decision that changes your entire energetic blueprint. When you truly decide, something remarkable happens at the cellular level of your being. Your nervous system recalibrates, your language automatically shifts, your daily habits begin reorganizing themselves without conscious effort, and your mind starts operating from a completely different paradigm. It's as if you've upgraded your internal operating system from scarcity mode to abundance mode, and suddenly you begin noticing opportunities that were always there but invisible to your previous mindset. This isn't about forcing yourself to think positive thoughts or repeating affirmations that feel hollow and unconvincing. True decision carries a weight, an authority, a finality that doubt simply cannot withstand. It's the difference between saying, "I hope this works," and declaring, "This is happening, period." One carries the energy of uncertainty and leaves room for failure, while the other carries the energy of inevitability and commands reality to align itself accordingly. Most people live their entire lives in the space between wanting and deciding, never realizing that this gray area is actually a trap that keeps them cycling through the same patterns over and over again. They want wealth, but haven't truly decided to become wealthy. They desire freedom, but haven't made the irreversible decision to claim their financial independence. They dream of abundance, but continue operating from the same doubt-based programming that created their current limitations. The moment you cross the bridge from doubt to decision, you'll feel it in your body. There's a shift, an internal click, a settling into a new version of yourself that wasn't available before. Your posture changes, your voice carries more authority, your actions become more decisive, and the very way you show up in the world begins attracting different results. Now, I want to go even deeper into this transformation, because understanding the mechanics of how doubt operates in your subconscious mind and learning the precise method for making decisions that actually stick is where the real magic happens. This is where we uncover the specific patterns that have been running your life without your permission, and more importantly, how to reprogram them completely. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to decide," if this is resonating with you, and you can feel that shift beginning to happen inside you right now. The transformation I just described doesn't happen overnight, and here's the behind-the-scenes reality that no one talks about. Even after you make that pivotal decision, your old programming will try to pull you back. This is where the daily practice of certainty becomes absolutely crucial, because certainty isn't a destination you arrive at once and then coast. It's a muscle you must strengthen every single day. Think of it like this. If you've been operating from doubt for years, maybe even decades, your neural pathways have been carved deep with patterns of uncertainty, worry, and financial anxiety. Making a decision is like deciding to take a new route through the forest, but the old path is still there, familiar and well-worn. Without daily practice, your mind will naturally gravitate back to what it knows, even if what it knows is keeping you stuck. This is where most people stumble. They experience that initial breakthrough moment, that powerful shift from doubt to decision, and then they assume the work is done. They go back to their regular routines, their familiar thought patterns, their comfortable habits, and within days or weeks, they find themselves right back where they started, wondering if that moment of clarity was just wishful thinking. The journey of wealth creation requires what I call certainty conditioning. Every morning before your mind gets cluttered with the day's distractions, you must remind yourself that your wealth already exists, not as some distant possibility, but as a present reality that you're simply allowing to unfold. This isn't about forcing yourself to believe something that feels untrue. It's about training your consciousness to operate from the frequency of abundance rather than scarcity. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this reveals a hidden truth about human psychology that most people never discover. The very act of doubting your ability to create wealth actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because doubt carries within it a very specific energetic signature that acts like a magnet for the exact experiences you're trying to avoid. When you fear that you'll never have enough money, when you worry that you're not smart enough or capable enough to build wealth, when you anxiously anticipate financial setbacks, you're not just thinking negative thoughts, you're broadcasting a frequency that the universe interprets as a request. It's as if you're placing an order for more lack, more struggle, more evidence that wealth is indeed beyond your reach. This invisible poison of fear operates so subtly that most people don't even realize they're carrying it. They think they want wealth, they believe they're working toward abundance, but underneath the surface there's this constant whisper of doubt that sabotages every effort they make. It shows up in the way they hesitate before making investments, in how they automatically assume the worst-case scenario, in their tendency to focus on what could go wrong rather than what could go magnificently right. The most successful people I've studied have learned to catch these fear-based thoughts before they take root. They've developed an internal early warning system that alerts them when their mind starts drifting towards scarcity thinking, and they immediately redirect their focus back to certainty, back to the unwavering knowing that their success is not just possible but inevitable. What makes this even more powerful is understanding that every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every word you speak is either moving you closer to your wealth or further away from it. There's no neutral ground in the realm of manifestation. You're either vibrating in alignment with abundance or you're vibrating in resistance to it, and the universe responds accordingly by delivering experiences that match your dominant frequency. This means that your daily practice isn't just about setting aside time for visualization or affirmations, though those are certainly important. It's about becoming conscious of your moment-to-moment relationship with money, success, and your own capabilities. It's about noticing when fear tries to creep in and immediately transforming that energy into excitement, possibility, and unwavering faith in your ability to create whatever you desire. But what happens when you truly master this level of consciousness, when you become so skilled At maintaining certainty that doubt barely has a chance to surface is something that will absolutely revolutionize your understanding of how wealth actually flows into your life. Put down, "I choose certainty," if you're beginning to see how your own fear patterns might have been unconsciously blocking your financial breakthrough. When you truly understand what it means to operate from unshakable certainty, you arrive at what Napoleon Hill called the point of no return. This is where the real transformation begins, because up until this moment, you've been playing it safe, keeping one foot in your old reality while tentatively stepping towards your new one. But wealth doesn't respond to tentative energy. It responds to total commitment, the kind that requires you to burn the bridges behind you. If these insights have shifted something in your thinking, if you can feel a new possibility opening up in your relationship with wealth, show me by hitting that like button. It's a simple way to acknowledge that this message found the right person at the right time. This concept makes most people uncomfortable because our minds are wired for survival, and survival thinking always wants an escape route, a backup plan, a way to retreat if things don't go according to plan. But here's the revelation that changed everything for the most successful people in history. As long as you leave a door open to doubt, wealth simply won't enter through the other door. It's impossible to simultaneously hold space for both abundance and scarcity, for both success and failure, for both certainty and uncertainty. The bridge-burning moment is when you stop hedging your bets and start living as if your success is not just probable, but absolutely guaranteed. It's when you stop saying, "I hope this works," and start declaring, "This is how it's going to be." It's when you stop preparing for failure and start preparing only for the magnitude of success that's coming your way. But here's what's really happening behind the scenes in your subconscious mind, and this explains why so many people struggle to make this leap. Every doubt you currently carry, every hesitation you feel about claiming your wealth, every fear that whispers, "This might not work for you," has a very specific origin story. These aren't random thoughts that appeared out of nowhere. They're protective mechanisms that your mind developed based on past experiences, past disappointments, past moments when you put yourself out there and got hurt. Maybe you failed at a business venture and lost money you couldn't afford to lose. Maybe someone you trusted betrayed that trust and left you feeling vulnerable and exposed. Maybe you were mocked or criticized for having big dreams, for wanting more than what others thought you deserved. Maybe you watched your parents struggle financially and absorbed the message that money is hard to come by and even harder to keep. Your mind, in its infinite wisdom and desire to protect you from future pain, catalogued all of these experiences and created what I call a risk avoidance system. Every time you start to think big, every time you consider taking a bold step toward wealth, this system activates and floods your consciousness with reminders of what went wrong before, exaggerated projections of what could go wrong again, and compelling reasons why you should wait for a better moment when conditions are more favorable. The problem is, this better moment, your mind is waiting for, doesn't exist. There will never be a moment when all the conditions are perfect, when all the risks have been eliminated, when success is guaranteed before you even begin. The very act of waiting for certainty before you act is what keeps you trapped in uncertainty indefinitely. What the most successful people discovered is that the protection their mind thought it was providing was actually the very thing preventing them from achieving what they desired most. They realized that every time they listened to the voice that said, "Not yet, be careful," or "What if it doesn't work?" they were essentially choosing their past over their future, their limitations over their possibilities, their fears over their dreams. This is where the journey becomes deeply personal, because overcoming these protective patterns isn't just about changing your thoughts or adopting new strategies. It's about healing the original wounds that created the need for protection in the first place. and then consciously choosing to operate from courage rather than caution, from expansion rather than contraction, from faith rather than fear. Now, I want to reveal something even deeper about how these past experiences don't just create doubt. They actually reshape your entire identity around limitation, and this identity becomes the invisible force that either attracts or repels every opportunity that comes your way. Write in the comments, "I'm burning the bridges," if you can feel yourself ready to let go of those old protective patterns that have been keeping you small. The identity shift I mentioned reveals something profound about the very nature of money itself, something that most people never truly grasp. Money isn't just currency or numbers in a bank account, it's pure energy. And like all forms of energy, it has its own intelligence, its own preferences, its own patterns of movement through the world. Here's what I've discovered through years of studying both successful and struggling individuals. Money consistently moves away from weakness and gravitates towards strength. It flows away from confusion and toward clarity. It abandons uncertainty and embraces unwavering determination. When you're operating from doubt, when you're constantly second-guessing yourself, when you're vibrating with the energy of, "I hope this works, but I'm not really sure," you're essentially repelling the very thing you're trying to attract. Think about it from money's perspective, if you will. Would you want to align yourself with someone who's constantly worried about losing you? Someone who treats your presence as fragile and temporary? Someone who approaches you with desperation and anxiety? Or would you prefer to flow towards someone who expects you, welcomes you with confidence, and treats your arrival as natural and inevitable? This isn't metaphysical mumbo-jumbo. This is observable reality. Watch how money behaves around different types of people. Notice how opportunities seem to effortlessly find those who carry themselves with quiet confidence, who speak about their goals with certainty rather than hope, who make decisions from a place of inner knowing rather than external validation. The energy of scarcity broadcasts a very specific signal that says, "I don't have enough, I'm not enough, this probably won't work for me." The energy of abundance, on the other hand, transmits a completely different frequency that declares, "I am worthy, I'm capable, success flows through me naturally." Money, being energy, responds to these transmissions by flowing toward whichever signal feels most aligned with growth, expansion, and possibility. But here's where this gets really fascinating, and this is the hidden truth that separates those who build lasting wealth from those who remain perpetually stuck in cycles of financial struggle. The difference between these two groups isn't what most people think it is. It's not about having better education. I've met brilliant PhDs who can barely pay their bills. It's not about having more connections. I've seen people with incredible networks who never leverage them effectively. It's not even about having more talent or creativity. The world is full of gifted individuals who never translate their abilities into financial success. The real differentiator, the factor that matters more than any external advantage or disadvantage, is the quality of decisions these people make on a daily basis. Not the quantity of decisions, not the complexity of their strategies, but the quality, the depth, the commitment, the finality with which they choose their path forward. A true decision, the kind that actually changes your life, has a very specific energetic signature. It's not wishy-washy or conditional. It doesn't leave room for doubt or second-guessing. When you make a real decision, something fundamental shifts in your nervous system, in your cellular structure, in the very fabric of your being. There's a before and after that's so distinct, you can actually feel it happening in your body. Most people think they're making decisions when they're actually just expressing preferences or stating intentions. They say things like, "I'm going to try to build wealth," or "I hope to be financially free someday," or "I'm thinking about starting a business." But none of these carry the weight, the authority, the irreversible commitment of an actual decision. The people who subscribe to This channel aren't just looking for quick tips or surface-level advice. They're committed to understanding the deeper mechanics of abundance, and every video I create is designed to support that level of genuine transformation. If that's you, hit that subscribe button. When someone truly decides to become wealthy, their entire world reorganizes around that decision. Their language changes, their daily habits shift, their attention focuses, their energy concentrates, and their actions align with mathematical precision toward their declared outcome. They stop tolerating circumstances that contradict their decision. They stop associating with people who undermine their vision, and they stop engaging in activities that don't serve their commitment. Now, I want to show you exactly how this decision-making process works at the deepest level of your consciousness, because understanding the mechanics of how decisions actually reshape your reality is where the real magic happens. Write in the comments, "My decisions create my reality," if you're starting to see how the quality of your choices has been determining the quality of your results. The mechanics of how decisions reshape reality operate on a level that most people never explore, and this brings us to an uncomfortable truth that might sting a little when you first hear it. You don't have the money you desire right now because you haven't truly decided to have it. Not really. Not at the core level where real transformation happens. I know that might sound harsh, especially if you've been working hard, studying financial strategies, and genuinely believing that you want wealth. But there's a profound difference between wanting something and deciding to have it, between hoping for a better financial future and committing to creating one with absolute certainty. When I say you haven't truly decided, I'm talking about the kind of radical, life-altering decision that requires you to completely reprogram who you are at the identity level. Most people want the money without wanting the transformation. They want the external results without doing the internal work. They want to keep thinking the same thoughts, holding the same beliefs, maintaining the same habits, and somehow expect dramatically different outcomes. Here's what's really happening behind the scenes, and this reveals one of the most important principles of wealth creation that virtually no one talks about. Your external world is nothing more than a perfect mirror reflection of your internal world. Every dollar in your bank account, every opportunity that comes your way, every financial setback you experience is simply showing you exactly what's happening in the invisible realm of your consciousness. This means that if you want to change your financial results, you can't just focus on external strategies, techniques, or systems. You have to go to the source, to the place where your financial reality is actually being created, which is in the deepest patterns of your thinking, feeling, and believing. Most people approach wealth creation completely backwards. They think that if they can just find the right investment, the right business opportunity, the right mentor, or the right strategy, then their financial problems will be solved. But what they're really doing is trying to change the reflection in the mirror without changing what's creating that reflection in the first place. It's like standing in front of a mirror and trying to fix your appearance by reaching toward the glass instead of actually fixing your hair or adjusting your clothes. No matter how much you manipulate the reflection, nothing changes until you address what's actually standing in front of the mirror. The invisible mold that's shaping your financial reality right now was created years ago, maybe even decades ago, through a combination of experiences, observations, and inherited beliefs about money, success, and what's possible for someone like you. This mold operates like a template that your subconscious mind uses to create experiences that match your deepest programming. If your internal mold is shaped by thoughts like, money is hard to come by, I'm not good with finances, or people like me don't get rich, then your external reality will consistently produce experiences that validate and reinforce these beliefs. You'll find yourself making choices that sabotage your financial progress, missing opportunities that are right in front of you, or attracting circumstances that keep you stuck in familiar patterns of struggle. But here's the empowering truth that changes everything. Since you created this mold through your thinking patterns, you can reshape it through new thinking patterns. The same consciousness that created your current financial reality can create an entirely different one, but only if you're willing to fundamentally alter the internal blueprint that's been running your life. This transformation requires what I call conscious reprogramming, where you deliberately and systematically replace the old patterns with new ones that are aligned with the wealth you desire. It's not enough to think positive thoughts or repeat affirmations if the deeper programming remains unchanged. Now I want to reveal the specific mechanism through which this internal programming actually creates your external financial experiences, because understanding this process gives you the power to deliberately redesign your entire relationship with money. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to reprogram," if you can see how your internal patterns have been creating your current financial reality and you're committed to changing them. The conscious reprogramming process I mentioned operates on a principle that's both liberating and empowering. Nobody is born mentally poor. Think about that for a moment. No child enters this world carrying beliefs about money being scarce, difficult to obtain, or morally corrupting. No baby is hardwired with thoughts about financial limitation or unworthiness. These patterns, these invisible barriers that feel so real and permanent, are actually learned responses that were programmed into your consciousness during your most impressionable years. This revelation changes everything, because anything that was learned can be unlearned, and anything that was programmed can be reprogrammed. Your current relationship with money isn't a fixed aspect of your personality or an unchangeable part of your destiny. It's simply the result of conditioning that happened to you, not something that defines who you truly are. The programming process began long before you were old enough to consciously choose your beliefs about wealth and success. It started in childhood, through thousands of seemingly innocent moments where you absorbed the financial attitudes and assumptions of the adults around you. Every conversation you overheard about money being tight, every stressed discussion about bills and expenses, every phrase like "money doesn't grow on trees" or "we can't afford that," was quietly shaping your understanding of how money works in the world. These weren't just casual comments. They were installing a complete operating system in your developing mind, an entire framework for understanding your relationship with abundance and scarcity. When you heard phrases like "money is the root of all evil," "rich people are greedy," or "you have to work hard for every penny," your young mind didn't filter these statements or question their validity. It simply accepted them as fundamental truths about reality and built your entire financial worldview around them. The adults who shared these beliefs weren't trying to harm you. They were passing along the same programming they had received, often with the genuine intention of protecting you from disappointment or teaching you to be realistic about life's limitations. But what they were actually doing was installing survival software in your consciousness, programming you to expect struggle, to be grateful for small amounts, and to never reach too far beyond what seemed safely attainable. This survival programming made sense in previous generations when resources were genuinely scarce and opportunities were limited, but in today's world of infinite possibility and abundant opportunity, these same mental patterns become invisible chains that keep you trapped in outdated thinking. You're trying to create modern wealth with ancient software, attempting to build 21st century abundance using 20th century limitation programming. The beautiful truth about reprogramming is that your mind is like a garden, and just as you can choose which plants to grow and which weeds to remove, you can consciously select which thoughts to nurture and which beliefs to uproot. The same neuroplasticity that allowed those limiting beliefs to take root in the first place can be used to cultivate entirely new patterns of thinking that support wealth, success, and unlimited possibility. This process requires patience and consistency because these old programs didn't install themselves overnight, and they won't disappear instantly either. But every time you catch yourself thinking a scarcity-based thought and consciously replace it with an abundance-focused one, you're literally rewiring your neural pathways. Every time you choose to respond to financial stress with confidence instead of panic, you're strengthening new patterns of thinking that support your wealth-building goals. The key is understanding that this isn't about positive thinking or forced optimism. It's about consciously choosing which mental programs you allow to run your life, recognizing that you have far more control over your internal experience than you were ever taught to believe. Now, I want to show you the specific language patterns that keep most people trapped in this old programming, and more importantly, how to identify and transform the exact words and phrases that have been unconsciously sabotaging your financial progress for years. Write in the comments, "I choose new programming," if you're ready to release those childhood limitations and install software that actually supports your wealth-building journey. The language patterns that keep people trapped in financial limitation operate through a mechanism that's both invisible and incredibly powerful, and understanding this process will fundamentally change how you communicate with both yourself and the world around you. Every single word you speak isn't just communication. It's actually a direct order to the universe, a command that your subconscious mind interprets as instruction for what kind of reality to create. When you say phrases like, "I can't afford that," "money is tight," or "it's so expensive," you're not just describing your current situation, you're actively programming your future experiences. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between casual conversation and serious intention. It simply receives these verbal commands and begins organizing your thoughts, decisions, and actions to make these statements true. That like button isn't just about the algorithm. It's your way of saying this content served you, that something here resonated with where you are in your financial journey. If you felt that connection, if these principles spoke to you, I'd appreciate that like. This happens because your words create what I call mental habits, automatic patterns of thinking that operate below the level of conscious awareness but powerfully influence every choice you make. These aren't innocent expressions of frustration or harmless observations about your circumstances. They're seeds that inevitably produce harvests, and if you're planting seeds of scarcity, limitation, and financial struggle, that's exactly what will grow in the garden of your life. Here's what most people don't realize. You cannot speak scarcity and expect to create abundance. It's energetically impossible. Language carries vibration, and that vibration becomes the frequency on which your life operates. When your daily vocabulary is filled with words and phrases that reinforce lack, difficulty, and limitation, you're essentially tuning your consciousness to a station that broadcasts nothing but scarcity programming. The transformation begins when you recognize that your language isn't just reflecting your reality, it's actively creating it. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to either reinforce your old patterns or install new ones. Every phrase you choose is either moving you closer to wealth or further away from it. There's no neutral ground in the realm of manifestation. This means that changing your financial reality requires changing your vocabulary, not just occasionally during moments of conscious intention, but consistently throughout your daily interactions. It means catching yourself when you automatically say things like, "I wish I could afford that," and immediately replacing it with, "I'm creating the resources for that." It means transforming "that's too expensive" into, "I'm expanding my capacity to receive that." The power of this linguistic transformation goes far beyond positive thinking or motivational speaking. You're literally reprogramming the operating system of your consciousness, installing new software that supports wealth creation instead of perpetuating financial struggle. Your subconscious mind is constantly listening to the instructions you give it through your language, and it will faithfully execute whatever program you're consistently running. But here's where this gets really sophisticated, and this is the behind-the-scenes mechanism that most people never discover. Your language doesn't just influence your own thinking, it also affects how others perceive and respond to you, how opportunities flow toward or away from you, and how the universe itself seems to organize circumstances around your declared reality. When you speak with the language of abundance, confidence, and possibility, you emit a completely different energetic signature than when you speak from scarcity, doubt, and limitation. People can feel this difference even if they can't consciously identify what's changed about you. Opportunities start appearing because you're vibrating at a frequency that attracts them. Synchronicities become more common because your language is aligning your consciousness with the flow of abundance. The most successful people I've studied have mastered this art of conscious communication. They've trained themselves to speak about money, opportunities, and their goals in ways that consistently reinforce their wealth-building identity rather than undermining it. They understand that every word is either an investment in their desired future or a withdrawal from it. Now, I want to reveal how this linguistic reprogramming connects to something even deeper. The emotional frequency that either magnetizes wealth toward you or repels it away, because your words are just the surface expression of the vibrational state that's actually running your life. Write in the comments, "My words create my wealth," if you're beginning to recognize how your everyday language has been either supporting or sabotaging your financial goals. The vibrational state that's actually running your life operates on a level that goes far deeper than words. Far deeper than conscious thoughts, and far deeper than the strategies and techniques most people focus on when trying to build wealth. This is where we encounter one of the most profound truths about financial manifestation. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you feel. Your bank account right now is essentially an emotional mirror reflecting back to you the exact vibrational frequency you've been consistently broadcasting about money, success, and your own worthiness to receive abundance. It's not primarily a reflection of how hard you've worked, how many hours you've put in, or even how smart your strategies have been. It's a direct reflection of your emotional relationship with wealth and the energy you've been carrying around money for months, years, maybe even decades. This revelation can be uncomfortable for people who have been taught that success is purely about effort and action, but it explains why so many hard-working, intelligent, well-intentioned people remain stuck in patterns of financial struggle despite their best efforts. They're trying to create abundance while carrying the emotional frequency of scarcity, fear, unworthiness, or anxiety about money. Think about what happens in your body when you have to pay a large bill, when someone mentions a price that seems high, or when you're considering making a significant investment. Do you feel expansion and excitement, or do you feel contraction and worry? Do you naturally assume things will work out, or do you immediately start calculating worst-case scenarios? These emotional responses aren't just reactions to circumstances. They're broadcasting signals that the universe reads as instructions for what kind of financial experiences to send your way. The transformation that changes everything is learning to feel wealth before you have it, to vibrate emotionally like someone who already possesses the abundance you desire. This isn't about pretending or forcing false emotions. It's about training your nervous system to associate money and financial opportunities with feelings of safety, excitement, gratitude, and natural expectation rather than stress, fear, or desperate need. When you can genuinely feel excited about financial opportunities instead of anxious, when you can think about money flowing into your life and feel warm appreciation rather than skeptical doubt, when you can envision your wealthy future and experience it as inevitable rather than hopeful, you've achieved what I call emotional alignment with abundance. This alignment is crucial because your emotional state directly influences every decision you make, every opportunity you notice or miss, every relationship you build, and every action you take. When you're vibrating in fear, scarcity, or desperation around money, you make decisions from that fearful place. You miss opportunities because your attention is focused on what could go wrong rather than what could go magnificently right. You unconsciously push away the very people and circumstances that could support your financial growth. But when you're emotionally aligned with abundance, when you're feeling wealthy from the inside out, you naturally make different choices. You notice different possibilities. You show up differently in conversations about money and business. You take actions that someone who expects success would take, rather than actions driven by fear of failure. The beautiful truth about this emotional alignment is that it doesn't require your circumstances to change first. You can begin feeling wealthy today, regardless of your current bank balance. You can start vibrating like someone who has abundant resources, even if those resources haven't manifested yet in physical form. And in fact, this emotional shift must happen before the physical manifestation can occur, because the universe can only deliver experiences that match your dominant emotional frequency. Now I want to show you the specific practices that allow you to sustain this aligned emotional state, even when your current circumstances seem to contradict the abundance you're claiming, because this is where most people lose their way and sabotage their own manifestation process. Write in the comments, "I feel my wealth now," if you can sense the difference between trying to create money from fear versus creating it from the energy of already having it. The practices that sustain emotional alignment with abundance require confronting something that most people never recognize about themselves. Many of us have become emotionally addicted to scarcity. This might sound strange at first, but think about how familiar, how comfortable, how normal it feels to worry about money, to complain about expenses, to bond with others over financial struggles, to feel virtuous about living modestly or sacrificing desires for practical concerns. These emotional patterns around scarcity aren't just habits. They've become part of your identity, part of how you relate to others, part of how you navigate the world. There's a strange comfort in the familiar stress of financial limitation, a sense of belonging that comes from sharing complaints about how expensive everything is, a feeling of moral righteousness that accompanies living within modest means. But here's the hidden truth behind this emotional addiction. Every time you indulge in worry, complaint, or anxiety about money, you're actually reinforcing the neural pathways that keep you trapped in scarcity. Every conversation where you bond with someone over financial struggles, every moment where you feel stressed about an expense, every time you automatically assume something is too expensive, these aren't just innocent emotional expressions. They're actually strengthening the very patterns that prevent abundance from flowing into your life. Breaking this addiction requires conscious emotional retraining, deliberately choosing to associate money with positive feelings rather than stress and anxiety. It means catching yourself when you start to feel that familiar financial worry and immediately redirecting your emotional energy toward gratitude, excitement, or peaceful confidence. It means transforming your relationship with money from one of scarcity-based stress to one of abundance-based appreciation. This transformation reveals something even more profound about the nature of your financial reality, something that has the power to completely revolutionize your understanding of wealth creation. Your financial life isn't actually what you've lived, it's what you've interpreted. The story you've been telling yourself about your money limitations, about why wealth seems difficult for you, about what's possible for someone with your background or circumstances, isn't an objective description of reality. It's just one possible interpretation of your experiences, and interpretations can be consciously rewritten. The narrative you've accepted about your financial destiny was constructed from selective memories, inherited beliefs, cultural conditioning, and emotional responses to past events. But that narrative isn't carved in stone. It's more like a rough draft that you've been treating as a final version. You have the power to edit that story, to change the meaning you've assigned to your experiences, to reframe your financial journey from one of limitation to one of expanding possibility. Every experience you've had with money, every financial setback, every missed opportunity, every moment of struggle can be reinterpreted through the lens of growth, learning, and preparation for greater abundance. The person who was taught that money is scarce can choose to see those lessons as valuable training in appreciation and resourcefulness. The person who experienced financial trauma can reframe those experiences as developing resilience and determination. The person who grew up without wealth can interpret that background as providing unique perspective and motivation. This isn't about denying your past experiences or pretending they didn't happen. It's about recognizing that the meaning you've assigned to those experiences is flexible, changeable, and completely within your control. The same set of circumstances that one person uses to justify financial limitation, another person uses as fuel for extraordinary wealth creation. The journey of rewriting your financial story begins with recognizing that you've been the author all along, even if you didn't realize it. Every belief you hold about money, every assumption you make about what's possible for you, every expectation you carry about how money flows in your life is part of a story that you have the power to revise, edit, and completely transform. Now, I want to explore how this story rewriting process actually works at the neurological level, because understanding the science behind belief transformation gives you practical tools for making these changes permanent rather than temporary. Write in the comments, "I rewrite my story," if you're ready to let go of the old narrative about your financial limitations and consciously create a new one based on abundance and possibility. The neurological level of belief transformation operates through what scientists call neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself and form new neural connections throughout your life. When you consciously rewrite your financial story, you're literally rewiring the neural pathways that have been automatically running your money-related thoughts, emotions, and behaviors for years or even decades. Every time you deliberately choose a new interpretation of your financial experiences, every time you consciously replace a limiting belief with an empowering one, you're creating new neural pathways while allowing the old ones to weaken through disuse. This process requires repetition and emotional intensity because the brain pays special attention to information that carries strong emotional charge and gets repeated consistently over time. But here's where this transformation process encounters its greatest challenge, and this reveals something crucial about sustainable wealth creation that most people never consider. Your financial story isn't just being written by you. It's being constantly influenced, edited, and sometimes completely rewritten by the environment you expose yourself to every single day. Your environment isn't neutral. Every conversation you have, every piece of content you consume, every person you spend time with, every influence you allow into your consciousness is either supporting your new abundance-focused narrative or undermining it by reinforcing the old scarcity-based story. You cannot successfully rewrite your financial script while continuing to immerse yourself in an environment that constantly contradicts and sabotages your new chosen beliefs. Think about this for a moment. You might spend an hour each morning doing powerful visualization and affirmation work, consciously programming yourself for wealth and success, but then spend the rest of your day surrounded by people who constantly complain about money, who criticize successful people, who reinforce limiting beliefs about what's possible, who normalize financial struggle as just the way life is. That environmental influence is far more powerful than your conscious programming efforts, because it's happening continuously and often unconsciously. The people you regularly interact with, the content you consume through social media, television and news, the conversations you engage in about money and success, all of these inputs are either strengthening your new wealth-focused neural pathways or reinforcing the old scarcity-based ones. There's no neutral ground. Every environmental influence is either moving you toward your financial goals or away from them. This is why so many people struggle to maintain the positive changes they make during periods of focused personal development. They experience powerful insights, make meaningful breakthroughs, and feel genuinely transformed, but then they return to the same environment that created their original limitations. Within days or weeks, the old patterns reassert themselves because the environmental influences supporting the old story are stronger than the conscious efforts to maintain the new one. The transformation becomes permanent only when you consciously curate an environment that consistently supports and reinforces your new financial identity. This means surrounding yourself with people who think bigger, who celebrate success rather than criticizing it, who speak the language of possibility rather than limitation. It means consuming content that expands your vision rather than contracts it, engaging in conversations that inspire growth rather than reinforce struggle. The most successful people understand this principle intuitively. They don't just work on changing their internal programming, they also design their external environment to support and accelerate that internal transformation. They choose their influences as carefully as they choose their investments, recognizing that environmental inputs compound over time just like financial returns. Now, I want to show you the specific mechanism through which environmental influences actually reshape your subconscious programming, and more importantly, how to identify and transform the subtle environmental factors that have been unconsciously sabotaging your wealth-building efforts. Write in the comments, "I choose my influences," if you're beginning to recognize how your current environment might be either supporting or undermining your financial transformation journey. The specific mechanism through which environmental influences reshape your subconscious programming operates on what researchers call the proximity principle. You literally become the average of the influences you expose yourself to most consistently. This isn't just about the 5 people you spend the most time with, though that's certainly important. It extends to every source of input that regularly enters your consciousness. The authors whose books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the social media accounts you follow, the conversations you overhear, even the background noise of your daily environment. Your subconscious mind is constantly sampling and averaging these inputs, creating what becomes your baseline understanding of what's normal, what's possible, and what's expected for someone in your position. If the majority of your influences operate from scarcity thinking, speak the language of financial limitation, and normalize struggle as the price of integrity, then your subconscious mind calibrates itself to that frequency and automatically steers your thoughts, decisions, and actions to align with that averaged reality. But here's what makes this principle both powerful and transformative. The averaging process works in both directions. Just as exposure to limiting influences pulls you toward limitation, consistent exposure to expansive, wealth-focused influences pulls you toward abundance. When you deliberately curate your environmental inputs to include more voices that speak confidently about wealth creation, more content that normalizes financial success, more conversations that assume abundance is natural and achievable, your subconscious mind begins recalibrating to this higher frequency. This environmental transformation becomes even more powerful when you understand how deeply language penetrates into the subconscious realm. Every sentence you hear repeatedly, every phrase that gets normalized in your environment, every way of speaking about money that becomes familiar through repetition is literally programming your internal reality creation mechanism. Words aren't just communication tools. They're actually orders to the universe, instructions that your subconscious mind uses to organize your perceptions, decisions, and actions. The language that surrounds you daily is either building or destroying your financial future, and most people are completely unconscious of this process. When you're regularly exposed to phrases like, "money doesn't matter," "you can't take it with you," "the economy is terrible," or "people like us don't get rich," these aren't just casual observations. They're programming statements that your subconscious mind accepts as fundamental truths about how reality operates. Poverty, at its core, feeds on thoughts of limitation, but it expresses itself and perpetuates itself through language patterns that reinforce scarcity as the natural state of things. Every time someone in your environment speaks about money as scarce, difficult to obtain, or morally questionable, they're not just expressing their opinion, they're contributing to a linguistic atmosphere that either supports or undermines your wealth-building efforts. The transformation happens when you recognize that you have complete control over the linguistic environment you create and maintain around yourself. You can choose to eliminate scarcity-based language from your own vocabulary while simultaneously reducing your exposure to people and content that consistently speak from limitation. You can actively seek out and immerse yourself in linguistic environments where abundance is assumed, where wealth creation is discussed as natural and accessible, where success stories are celebrated rather than criticized. This isn't about avoiding reality or living in a bubble of positive thinking. It's about recognizing that language literally creates reality by shaping the thoughts that become beliefs, that drive behaviors, that produce results. When you're surrounded by language patterns that assume abundance is possible, that treat wealth as a natural expression of value, creation that speak about money as a tool for good rather than a source of corruption, your subconscious mind absorbs these patterns and begins operating from them automatically. Now, I want to reveal how this linguistic transformation connects to something even more fundamental, the internal dialogue that's running constantly in your mind, creating your moment-to-moment experience of reality and either magnetizing wealth toward you or repelling it away. Write in the comments, "My environment supports abundance," if you're ready to consciously upgrade the linguistic and energetic influences that have been unconsciously shaping your financial reality. The linguistic transformation that reshapes your external environment is powerful, but it pales in comparison to the internal dialogue that's running continuously in your mind, creating your moment-to-moment experience of reality. This internal conversation, the one you have with yourself when nobody else is listening, is the most important dialogue of your entire life because it's the source code that programs every thought, emotion, decision, and action you take. Here's what most people don't realize. Your internal dialogue isn't just commentary on your experiences. It's actively creating those experiences by shaping the beliefs that determine what you notice, what opportunities you recognize, what risks you're willing to take, and what possibilities you can even conceive. Every self-critical thought, every doubt about your capabilities, every internal argument about why wealth might not be possible for you is literally constructing the reality you'll experience tomorrow. The behind-the-scenes mechanism of wealth creation operates primarily through this internal conversation because your subconscious mind is constantly listening to what you tell yourself about money, success, and your own worthiness to receive abundance. When your internal dialogue is filled with phrases like, "I'm not good with money," "I always struggle financially," or "people like me don't get rich," your subconscious mind accepts these statements as factual information about reality and organizes your perceptions and behaviors to make them true. But when you consciously transform your internal dialogue to statements like, "I'm learning to master money," "I'm expanding my financial capacity," and "wealth flows naturally to me," your subconscious mind begins organizing your reality around these new instructions. The same mental mechanism that was sabotaging your financial progress becomes the very tool that accelerates your wealth creation. This transformation becomes exponentially more powerful when you combine conscious internal dialogue with what Napoleon Hill identified as one of the most potent wealth creation tools available to human consciousness: deliberate, emotionally charged visualization. Before money can reach your bank account, it must first reach your mind with sufficient clarity and emotional intensity to become a belief, because beliefs are the invisible forces that actually manifest as physical experiences. Most people think visualization is about creating pretty mental pictures or engaging in wishful thinking, but that completely misses the profound mechanism at work. When you visualize with genuine emotion and absolute clarity, you're not just imagining, you're actually experiencing that reality in your consciousness. Your nervous system responds to vivid, emotionally charged, mental experiences almost exactly the same way it responds to actual physical experiences. This means that when you consistently visualize yourself as wealthy, when you mentally experience the emotions of financial freedom, when you practice the feeling of having abundant resources, you're literally training your subconscious mind to accept wealth as your natural state. Your beliefs about what's possible, what you deserve, and what's normal for you begin shifting to accommodate this new internal reality. The key is understanding that your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between experiences that happen in physical reality and experiences that happen in your imagination with sufficient emotional intensity. Both create neural pathways, both influence your belief system, and both shape the automatic patterns that determine your daily choices and behaviors. When you combine transformed internal dialogue with emotionally charged visualization, you're essentially creating a new identity at the subconscious level, an identity that naturally thinks, feels, and acts in ways that are aligned with wealth creation rather than wealth resistance. Your mind begins to automatically notice opportunities it previously missed, make decisions that someone with wealth consciousness would make, and attract circumstances that match your new internal reality. Now, I want to show you how to add the final element that transforms this mental and emotional work into concrete physical results. Because without this crucial component, even the most powerful internal transformation remains trapped in the realm of potential rather than becoming actual wealth. Write in the comments, "My mind creates my wealth," if you're beginning to understand how your internal dialogue and visualization practices have been either building or blocking your financial success. The crucial component that transforms mental and emotional work into concrete physical results operates through what I call the emotional ignition system. And understanding this mechanism is absolutely essential, because without it, even the most sophisticated internal transformation work remains trapped in the realm of pure potential. Emotion is the spark that converts ideas into reality, the catalytic force that bridges the gap between what exists in your mind and what manifests in your physical experience. A desire without genuine emotion behind it is nothing more than a passing thought, a fleeting mental concept that carries no real power to reshape your circumstances, but a desire that's been charged with authentic emotion, that's been felt deeply and consistently, becomes what Napoleon Hill called a creative obsession, an unstoppable force that reorganizes your entire reality around its fulfillment. This is why people can spend years thinking about wealth, reading about financial strategies, and even visualizing abundance, yet see no meaningful change in their circumstances. They're engaging with these concepts intellectually rather than emotionally, treating wealth creation like an academic exercise instead of recognizing it as a deeply personal transformation that must be felt in every cell of their being. The emotion that creates real change isn't forced or artificial. It's the natural result of truly believing that your wealthy future is not just possible, but inevitable. When you can think about your financial goals and feel genuine excitement rather than desperate hope. When you can envision your abundant life and experience deep gratitude rather than anxious wanting. When you can consider money flowing into your experience and feel natural expectation rather than surprised disbelief. You've activated the emotional frequency that actually manifests wealth. But here's where many people get stuck, and this reveals the final piece of the wealth creation puzzle that ties everything together. All the internal work, all the emotional alignment, all the belief transformation in the world means nothing without what I call aligned action, physical movement in the world that's coherent with your new internal reality. Action isn't the end of the manifestation process. It's the channel through which all your internal transformation flows into concrete results. It's the bridge between the invisible realm of consciousness and the visible realm of physical experience. Without aligned action, you have mental activity, emotional energy, and spiritual potential, but no actual manifestation. The key word here is aligned. This isn't about taking any action, working harder, or forcing outcomes through sheer effort. Aligned action is behavior that naturally emerges from your transformed identity, decisions that someone with wealth consciousness would naturally make, steps that feel inevitable rather than forced. When your internal transformation is genuine and complete, aligned action happens almost automatically. You find yourself making different choices about how you spend your time, what opportunities you pursue, how you present yourself to the world, and what risks you're willing to take. These aren't actions you have to force yourself to take. They feel like the natural expression of who you've become. The most common mistake people make is trying to take wealth-building actions while still carrying a scarcity-based identity. They might start a business, make investments, or pursue opportunities, but they're doing so from fear, desperation, or a sense of lack, rather than from genuine abundance consciousness. This misalignment between their actions and their identity creates internal resistance that sabotages their efforts. True aligned action feels different. It carries the energy of inevitability rather than desperation, confidence rather than anxiety, natural expectation rather than desperate hope. When you're taking action from genuine wealth consciousness, the actions themselves feel easier, opportunities seem to appear more readily, and resistance from the external world diminishes significantly. Now, I want to reveal how to recognize when your actions are truly aligned versus when they're being driven by old programming, because this distinction determines whether your efforts will accelerate your wealth creation or unconsciously sabotage it. Write in the comments, "I take aligned action," if you can feel the difference between forcing outcomes from fear versus allowing them to unfold from genuine abundance. Consciousness. Recognizing when your actions are truly aligned versus driven by old programming reveals something profound about the nature of transformation itself. And this understanding leads us to one of the most crucial yet overlooked principles of wealth creation. You're not failing because of lack of capacity, intelligence, or opportunity. You're failing because of lack of strategic repetition. Success and wealth aren't events that happen to you once and then remain forever. They're ongoing processes that require consistent daily practice, focused habits, and the kind of repetition that gradually rewires your entire nervous system to operate from abundance rather than scarcity. Most people approach wealth creation like it's a destination they can reach through one brilliant strategy or one perfect opportunity, but that completely misunderstands how transformation actually works. The journey of becoming wealthy is much more like learning a musical instrument or developing athletic ability. It requires daily practice, consistent reinforcement, and the patient accumulation of small improvements that eventually compound into extraordinary results. Every morning when you choose abundance-focused thoughts over scarcity-based ones, every time you speak with confidence about your financial future rather than worry, every moment when you act from wealth consciousness rather than fear, You're strengthening neural pathways that make these responses increasingly automatic. This is why people can have powerful breakthrough moments, profound insights, and genuine experiences of transformation, yet find themselves back in old patterns within weeks or months. They treated the breakthrough as a destination rather than recognizing it as the beginning of a daily practice that needs to be maintained and strengthened through repetition. The most successful people understand this principle intuitively. They don't rely on motivation or inspiration to maintain their wealth-building practices. They've developed systematic approaches to reinforcing their abundance mindset daily, regardless of how they feel or what circumstances they're facing. They've made the conscious choice to repeat thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that align with wealth until these patterns become so deeply ingrained that they operate automatically. But here's where this process encounters another layer of complexity that most people never consider. While you're working to establish new patterns through conscious repetition, your environment is simultaneously reinforcing either your new abundance programming or your old scarcity programming through unconscious repetition. Your environment speaks to your subconscious mind constantly, even when you're not consciously listening, and it's delivering messages that either support your transformation or undermine it. The physical spaces you occupy, the conversations that happen around you, the energy of the people you interact with, the background noise of news and media, all of these environmental factors are continuously programming your consciousness through repetition that's so subtle you don't even notice it happening. Think about how much time you spend each day in environments that normalize financial struggle versus environments that assume abundance is natural. Consider the ratio of conversations you hear about money being scarce versus conversations about wealth being accessible. Notice whether the content you consume consistently reinforces limitation or consistently expands your sense of what's possible. This environmental programming through repetition is often more powerful than your conscious efforts because it's happening continuously and it bypasses your critical thinking. When you're surrounded by people who automatically assume that money is tight, who constantly reference how expensive everything is, who treat financial abundance as unrealistic or morally questionable, these messages are being absorbed by your subconscious mind through sheer repetition, regardless of what you consciously believe about wealth. The transformation becomes sustainable only when you align both your conscious repetition and your environmental repetition with your wealth-building goals. This means not just practicing abundance thinking during your morning routine, but also ensuring that your daily environment consistently reinforces those same patterns through the conversations you engage in, the content you consume, and the physical spaces you occupy. Now I want to explore the deepest level of this transformation process, where we discover how environmental and conscious repetition work together to literally reconstruct your identity at the cellular level, creating a version of yourself that naturally attracts wealth without effort or struggle. Write in the comments, "Repetition creates my reality," if you're beginning to see how the consistency of your daily practices and environmental influences has been shaping your financial results more than any single strategy or opportunity. The deepest level of identity reconstruction operates through a mechanism that goes far beyond conscious repetition and environmental programming, revealing what might be the most powerful force in wealth creation, the magnetic quality of sustained emotion. While most people focus on changing their thoughts, learning new strategies, or even improving their environment, they miss the fundamental truth that the universe doesn't primarily respond to what you say or even what you think. It responds to how you feel. Your emotional state is the language the universe understands most clearly because emotion carries a vibrational frequency that extends far beyond your physical body and communicates your true relationship with abundance or scarcity. You can repeat affirmations about wealth, visualize financial success, and surround yourself with positive influences. But if your underlying emotional frequency is broadcasting fear, doubt, or unworthiness, that's the signal the universe receives and responds to. This emotional magnetism operates continuously, whether you're conscious of it or not, and it's far more powerful than any conscious programming you might be doing. When you genuinely feel wealthy from the inside out, when you carry the emotional signature of someone who naturally has abundant resources, when you vibrate with the frequency of financial freedom, you become a magnet for opportunities, people, and circumstances that match that emotional reality. But here's where this principle becomes both challenging and transformative, revealing the true test of your wealth consciousness. The real power of this emotional magnetism activates not when everything is going well, not when you have plenty of money in the bank, not when opportunities are flowing easily, but when your external circumstances seem to completely contradict the abundant reality you're claiming internally. This is the moment that separates those who achieve lasting wealth from those who remain trapped in cycles of temporary success, followed by familiar struggle. When your bank account is low, when an unexpected expense appears, when an opportunity falls through, when people around you are struggling financially, can you maintain the elevated emotional frequency of abundance in the face of evidence that seems to suggest scarcity is more real? Most people's emotional state is completely dependent on their external circumstances. They feel wealthy when money is flowing and anxious when it's not. They feel confident when things are going well and fearful when challenges arise. But this reactive approach to emotions makes them slaves to circumstances rather than creators of their reality. The transformation that changes everything happens when you develop the ability to sustain your internal wealth frequency regardless of what's happening around you. When you can look at a challenging financial situation and feel excited about the creative solutions that are coming rather than panicked about what might go wrong. When you can experience a temporary setback and maintain deep certainty that your abundant future is still unfolding rather than questioning whether wealth is really possible for you. This sustained emotional alignment in the face of contradictory evidence is what actually molds your destiny, because it demonstrates to the universe that your commitment to abundance is stronger than your attachment to current circumstances. It shows that you're not just hoping for wealth when conditions are favorable, you're embodying wealth consciousness as a fundamental aspect of who you are. The practice of sustaining elevated emotions despite challenging circumstances literally rewires your nervous system to operate from trust rather than fear, from expansion rather than contraction, from creative possibility rather than reactive limitation. Each time you choose abundance-focused emotions in the face of scarcity-focused evidence, you're strengthening your capacity to remain centered in wealth consciousness, regardless of what temporary conditions might be appearing in your life. Now, I want to reveal the specific identity shift that makes this emotional mastery not just possible, but natural. Because when you understand who you really are at the deepest level, maintaining wealth consciousness becomes as automatic as breathing. Write in the comments, I sustain my wealth frequency. If you can feel the difference between letting circumstances control your emotions versus choosing your emotional state regardless of what's happening around you. The specific identity shift that makes emotional mastery natural operates through what I call your internal wealth thermostat, an invisible mechanism that regulates how much success, money, and abundance you'll allow yourself to experience based on what you believe you're worth at the deepest level of your identity. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most people resist accepting. You will never consistently earn more, keep more, or attract more than you believe you genuinely deserve. Your self-image acts like a thermostat in your subconscious mind, constantly monitoring your financial reality and making subtle adjustments to keep your actual results aligned with your internal sense of worthiness. Just like a thermostat in your home automatically turns the heat on when the temperature drops below the set point and turns it off when it rises above that point, your internal wealth thermostat operates continuously to maintain your financial reality within the range that feels consistent with who you believe yourself to be. If you subconsciously see yourself as someone who struggles with money, who doesn't deserve abundance, or who should be grateful for modest means, then every time your financial situation starts to improve beyond that range, invisible forces will activate to bring you back down to your programmed comfort zone. This is why lottery winners often end up bankrupt within a few years, why people who experience sudden windfalls frequently lose it all, and why even successful people sometimes sabotage themselves just when everything seems to be going perfectly. Their external financial success exceeded their internal wealth thermostat setting, creating an unconscious drive to restore the familiar equilibrium. But this same mechanism works in reverse when your internal wealth thermostat is set to abundance. When you genuinely see yourself as someone who naturally creates and maintains wealth, who deserves financial freedom, who adds tremendous value to the world, then any temporary dip below that level creates an unconscious drive to restore abundance, to seek new opportunities, to take actions that rebuild your financial position. The transformation of this internal thermostat happens primarily through the conversation you have with yourself when you're alone, when no one else is listening, when your guard is down and your true beliefs about yourself surface. This internal dialogue is perhaps the most crucial wealth-building tool you possess, because your mind literally becomes what you constantly tell it about who you are and what you're capable of achieving. Every self-critical thought, every moment when you tell yourself you're not smart enough, not talented enough, not deserving enough, is programming your wealth thermostat to a lower setting. Every time you internally rehearse stories about why money is difficult for you, why people like you don't get rich, why you're destined to struggle, you're reinforcing neural pathways that will automatically sabotage your financial progress. But when you consciously transform your internal dialogue to consistently reinforce your identity as someone who creates wealth naturally, who deserves abundance, who has tremendous value to offer the world, you're literally reprogramming your internal thermostat to expect and maintain higher levels of financial success. This isn't about positive thinking or forced affirmations that feel hollow and unconvincing. It's about recognizing that the voice in your head isn't necessarily telling you the truth about who you are. It's often just repeating old programming that was installed during your most vulnerable years. You have the power to consciously choose what you tell yourself about your capabilities, your worth, and your financial destiny. The practice of transforming internal dialogue requires vigilance and consistency, because these patterns have been running automatically for years or decades. But every time you catch yourself engaging in self-defeating internal conversation and consciously redirect it toward empowerment and possibility, you're adjusting your wealth thermostat to a higher setting. Now, I want to show you how this internal thermostat adjustment connects to the final piece of sustainable wealth creation, developing what I call financial consciousness, where wealth becomes not something you have, but something you are. Write in the comments, "I reprogram my worth," if you're ready to take conscious control of the internal dialogue that's been setting your financial thermostat for years. The internal thermostat adjustment that transforms your financial results operates through a mechanism that's both simple and profound. What you repeat daily in your mind, you inevitably build with your hands and live in your bank account. This isn't metaphysical theory. It's the practical reality of how human consciousness creates physical results through the formation of mental habits that eventually become automatic patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior. Your dominant sustained thoughts don't just influence your mood or perspective. They literally become the habits that determine how you perceive opportunities, what risks you're willing to take, how you present yourself to others, what standards you maintain for your work, and what level of abundance feels natural and sustainable to you. These mental habits operate below the level of conscious awareness, but they're constantly shaping every financial decision you make. When your habitual thoughts revolve around scarcity, limitation, and financial struggle, you develop automatic patterns that reinforce those realities. You unconsciously notice evidence that supports difficulty while overlooking opportunities for improvement. You automatically assume the worst about financial situations while missing the potential for positive outcomes. You habitually speak and act in ways that maintain your familiar level of financial stress because that's what feels normal to your programmed identity. But when you consciously cultivate mental habits focused on abundance, possibility, and wealth creation, those same automatic patterns begin working in your favor. You start naturally noticing opportunities that were always there but invisible to your previous mindset. You begin automatically assuming that solutions exist for financial challenges rather than assuming they're insurmountable. You habitually speak and act in ways that attract rather than repel financial success. This transformation reveals something even deeper about the nature of wealth creation, something that goes beyond strategies, techniques, or external circumstances. The truth is that you can't attract what you don't believe you deserve, and your identity, the fundamental image you hold of yourself, determines your financial destiny more powerfully than your talent, education, connections, or even your efforts. Your identity acts as an invisible magnet, constantly attracting experiences, opportunities, and results that match your self-image while repelling those that don't align with who you believe yourself to be. This magnetic force operates continuously, influencing not just how you think and feel about money, but how money and wealth-related opportunities respond to your presence in the world. When your identity is built around limitation, struggle, or unworthiness, you emit an energetic signature that communicates those qualities to everyone you meet and every situation you encounter. People unconsciously sense your relationship with abundance, and they respond accordingly. Opportunities that require confidence and self-worth naturally flow toward those who embody those qualities, while avoiding those who don't. The most successful people understand this principle intuitively. They've learned to embody wealth consciousness not as something they're trying to achieve, but as something they fundamentally are. Their identity as creators of value, as naturally abundant beings, as worthy recipients of prosperity becomes so deeply integrated that it operates automatically in every interaction, every decision, and every moment of their lives. This identity transformation isn't about pretending to be something you're not or forcing yourself to feel worthy when you don't. It's about recognizing that the identity you currently hold was constructed from past experiences, inherited beliefs, and external conditioning that may have nothing to do with your true capacity for creating and maintaining wealth. The image you have of yourself right now was built over years through repeated experiences and interpretations, but since it was constructed through mental repetition, it can be reconstructed through new mental repetition. You have the power to consciously choose the identity you embody, to deliberately cultivate an image of yourself that naturally attracts abundance rather than unconsciously maintaining one that repels it. Now, I want to explore the final dimension of this identity transformation, understanding how to embody wealth consciousness so completely that creating money becomes as natural and effortless as breathing. Write in the comments, "I embody wealth consciousness," if you're ready to transform your identity from someone who hopes for wealth to someone who naturally creates and maintains it. Embodying wealth consciousness so completely that creating money becomes as natural as breathing requires understanding something that goes even deeper than identity, something that operates at the energetic level where the real magic of manifestation actually happens. The truth is that your vibration speaks infinitely louder than your words, your actions, or even your conscious intentions. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you are energetically. Every cell in your body is constantly broadcasting a frequency that communicates your true relationship with abundance, and this energetic signature is what money, opportunities, and wealth-building circumstances actually respond to. Money doesn't flow to those who need it most, who work hardest for it, or who want it desperately. Money flows to those whose energetic frequency naturally resonates with abundance. This frequency isn't something you can fake or force. It's the authentic result of your deepest beliefs about yourself, about money, and about what you genuinely believe is possible for your life. When you truly embody wealth consciousness, when you genuinely feel deserving of abundance, when you naturally expect financial success, your energetic field broadcasts a signal that attracts money-making opportunities like a magnet attracts metal. But here's where this process reveals its most complex and often frustrating dimension, and this explains why so many people struggle despite understanding these principles intellectually. There's often a profound misalignment between what you consciously desire and what you unconsciously allow, between what your mind wants and what your deeper programming will actually permit you to receive and maintain. This invisible self-sabotage operates through subconscious patterns that were formed years or decades ago, often during your most impressionable years, when you absorbed beliefs about money, success, and worthiness that now operate automatically below the level of conscious awareness. Your conscious mind might genuinely want wealth, but if your subconscious programming contains beliefs about money being corrupting, success requiring sacrifice of integrity, or wealthy people being fundamentally different from you, then you'll unconsciously sabotage any progress that threatens to contradict those deeper beliefs. The sabotage doesn't announce itself with obvious self-destructive behavior. It's far more subtle and sophisticated than that. It shows up as procrastination when you're about to take a wealth-building action that would require you to step outside your comfort zone. It manifests as sudden doubt when an opportunity appears that's bigger than what you've previously experienced. It emerges as perfectionism that prevents you from moving forward, or as fear that convinces you to choose safety over growth at crucial moments. You might find yourself making decisions that seem logical and responsible in the moment, but that consistently keep you trapped at your current level of financial success. You might notice patterns where you get close to breakthrough moments, but then something always seems to go wrong. Some unexpected obstacle appears, or you suddenly lose momentum just when things were starting to accelerate. This internal conflict between conscious desire and subconscious allowance creates what I call energetic static, a mixed signal that confuses both your own nervous system and the responsive universe around you. Part of you is broadcasting, "I want wealth," while another part is simultaneously transmitting, "I'm not sure I deserve it," or "I'm afraid of what it might change about me," or "I don't know if I can handle that level of responsibility." The resolution of this conflict requires what might be the most courageous work you'll ever do, going into the depths of your subconscious programming to identify and transform the limiting beliefs that are operating beneath your awareness. It means becoming willing to examine not just what you think you want, but what you're actually prepared to allow, to receive, and to become. Now I want to show you the specific process for identifying these hidden sabotage patterns and transforming them into supportive forces that accelerate rather than impede your wealth creation journey. Write in the comments, "I allow my wealth," if you're ready to examine and transform the unconscious patterns that might be blocking your conscious desires for financial abundance. The specific process for identifying hidden sabotage patterns begins with examining something so fundamental that most people never consider its impact on their financial reality: the language you use to describe your relationship with money on a daily basis. Your financial destiny is literally being written through the words you repeat, because speaking, poverty inevitably creates poverty thinking, which then manifests as poverty living. Every casual comment about things being too expensive, every automatic response of "I can't afford that," every habitual phrase like "money is tight" or "times are tough" isn't just describing your current situation. It's actively programming your subconscious mind to maintain and recreate those exact circumstances. These aren't innocent expressions of frustration. They're unconscious incantations that reinforce the very limitations you're trying to overcome. The transformation requires recognizing that wealthy language must precede wealthy results, not the other way around. You can't wait until you have abundance to start speaking abundantly. You must begin speaking the language of wealth before the wealth appears, because your words are the seeds that grow into your reality. When you consistently speak about money as scarce, you train your mind to notice scarcity. When you habitually express lack, you literally create neural pathways that make lack feel normal and expected. But shifting your language alone isn't enough if the deeper foundation of your life remains chaotic. Because there's an invisible force that either supports or undermines every wealth-building effort you make, the level of order you maintain in your daily existence. This isn't about perfectionism or compulsive organization. It's about recognizing that where there's order, there's power, and where there's chaos, there's constant energy leakage that prevents you from accumulating and maintaining wealth. The universe operates according to precise principles of organization. From the mathematical patterns in galaxy formations to the exact biochemical processes that sustain life. This same preference for order extends to how abundance flows through human experience. When your external environment reflects clarity, intention, and purposeful organization, it creates an energetic foundation that supports wealth manifestation. When your environment is chaotic, cluttered, or haphazard, it generates static that interferes with your ability to attract and maintain financial success. Your external organization isn't just a reflection of your internal state. It actively creates internal clarity by giving your subconscious mind visual and tactile evidence that you're someone who values order, who takes care of resources, who can be trusted with abundance. Every organized space in your life, every system you create for managing your time and money, every intentional choice about how you structure your daily existence is sending a message to both yourself and the universe that you're prepared to handle greater levels of success and responsibility. This principle reveals something profound about the sabotage patterns we've been exploring. Often, the chaos in your external environment is a manifestation of internal confusion about whether you truly want the level of transformation that wealth requires. Maintaining disorder becomes an unconscious way of ensuring that you never have to face the full magnitude of your capabilities or deal with the changes that abundance would bring to your life. When you begin organizing your physical space, creating systems for managing your finances, establishing routines that support your goals, and bringing intentional order to the various aspects of your existence, you're not just improving your productivity, you're literally clearing the energetic channels through which wealth flows. You're demonstrating to your subconscious mind that you're serious about transformation, that you're prepared to become someone who naturally creates and maintains abundance. The wealth consciousness matrix I mentioned represents the culmination of everything we've explored together. The integration of transformed language, organized environment, aligned emotions, elevated identity, and conscious daily practices that work together to make wealth creation as natural as any other aspect of your life. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, if you've felt these concepts resonating in your body rather than just understanding them intellectually, then something profound has already shifted within you. You're not the same person who started watching this video. You've been exposed to principles that most people never encounter, insights that can literally reshape your financial destiny if you apply them consistently. The beautiful thing about this transformation is that it's already begun. Simply by absorbing these concepts with genuine attention and intention, you've started rewiring the neural pathways that create your financial reality. The question now isn't whether change is possible. It's how quickly you'll allow that change to accelerate. If this content has added real value to your life, if you can feel the potential for transformation stirring within you, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe to this channel. This isn't just another collection of motivational videos. This is an ongoing journey into the deepest principles of conscious wealth creation. And every piece of content is designed to support your continued evolution. And if you've truly been with me until the end, if you've absorbed not just the information, but the energy behind these revelations, write in the comments, "I'm ready for my breakthrough." Let me know you were here, that you received what was shared, that you're part of this community of people who've decided to take conscious control of their financial destiny. If this conversation has touched something real in you, hit that like button. It tells me you felt the connection, that these insights landed where they were meant to land. There's a video right here that complements this topic perfectly, diving even deeper into the practical application of these principles. Click and continue with me over there, because your transformation is just beginning, and the next level of understanding is waiting for you.